Have you ever been tested by someone who thought you'd break, only to discover you were stronger than they ever imagined? This is the heartwarming story of a shy girl who walked into a CEO's office, heard the words, "You're fired," and instead of begging for her job, she asked for something that would change both their lives forever. The 40th floor of Aurelia Systems wasn't designed for people like Harmony Hart. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a city that sparkled with ambition, while inside the air itself seemed calibrated for success. At 27, Harmony wore her invisibility like armor. She was the night shift janitor the woman executives passed without seeing the presence that cleaned their mistakes while they slept in homes she'd never afford. But today she'd been summoned. Something about an internal security matter. The words meant everything and nothing. Adrian Cole waited by the window, his back a wall of expensive suit fabric and controlled tension. 34 years old, CEO, a man who'd built an empire believing data never lied even when people did. His voice came flat, emotionless. "Do you know why you're here?" Harmony's hands twisted together. "No, sir." He turned slowly. In his eyes lived something Harmony recognized from her own mirror, the particular emptiness that came from losing someone who mattered more than breathing. "You accessed restricted company data," he said, each word precise as a scalpel. "Your employment is terminated, effective immediately." The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It pressed against her ribs like hands determined to squeeze out her last bit of courage. This shy girl had survived worse. Lost her sister. Raised a niece alone. Been destroyed at her last job for telling truths people didn't want to hear. But instead of defending herself, Harmony bowed deeply, her voice fracturing. "Please, don't tell my niece. She already lost her mother. I don't want her to lose the only stability she has left." Adrian froze mid-breath. Those were the exact words he'd spoken to his own father 10 years ago, standing in a hospital corridor that smelled of endings. Back then, when his girlfriend died, no one had listened to his quiet breaking. Harmony walked toward the door, head down, shoulders, carrying the weight of a world that kept telling her she didn't matter. Adrian stared after her, confusion cutting through his carefully constructed walls. Why didn't she panic? He whispered to the empty room. Why didn't she fight back? His hand reached for the phone before his mind caught up. Cancel the termination. She passed. But even as he said it, something deeper shifted in his chest. This wasn't about security tests anymore. It was about recognizing your own wound in a stranger's eyes and realizing that maybe, just maybe, healing required you both. But what kind of test destroys someone just to see if they'll break? And what happens when the person being tested sees straight through to the tester's own broken heart? The email arrived at 11:47 p.m., glowing against the bathroom mirror. "Your employment status remains active. The previous conversation was part of an internal security assessment. We appreciate your cooperation." Harmony read it 4 times, hands shaking. Not fired. Emmy was safe. That's all that mattered. Emmy, 7 years old, gap-toothed, obsessed with number puzzles. The child who'd lost her mother to cancer 2 years ago and still sometimes woke crying. But 40 floors above Adrian Cole wasn't convinced the test meant what HR claimed. After 6 p.m., Aurelia Systems transformed. The building belonged to security guards, cleaning crews, and the shy girl in janitorial overalls who saw more than anyone realized. Harmony had studied data science once, 2 years at community college before hospital bills buried her dreams. She'd traded algorithms for mop buckets. But you can't unlearn how to see patterns. 3 nights later, the executive coffee machine broke. 2 engineers argued over it, each convinced they were right. Harmony approached with her cart, but her eyes caught the control panel. The diagnostic sequence was reversed, obvious if you understood the architecture. She knelt without thinking. "Hey!" The first engineer's voice cut sharp. "Janitor, don't touch technology you don't understand." Her hand jerked back. "I'm sorry, but I think the sequence is just reversed." They stared. She reached forward, hesitant, apologetic, and tapped 3 points in precise order. The machine hummed to life. From the shadows, Adrian watched. Colin Hayes appeared beside him. "She identified the calibration error," Colin said quietly. "We should monitor her closely." Adrian said nothing, watching Harmony gather her supplies with practiced invisibility. At her previous job, Harmony had noticed billing discrepancies. She'd reported them through proper channels. 3 days later, they fired her in front of everyone, suggesting janitorial work was more her speed. She'd never told Emmy. Now she whispered a promise: never stand out. Never speak up. Just survive. But patterns don't care about promises. The analytics floor should have been empty at 2 a.m. One screen remained active against protocol. She should have kept walking. Instead, she leaned closer. A system warning manually disabled. The timestamp altered by 0.0042 seconds, a discrepancy so small most systems would ignore it. "That's not right," she breathed. "What did you notice?" Harmony spun. Adrian stood in the doorway, watching her with intensity. "I didn't mean to look. I'm so sorry." "No." He stepped closer. "Tell me what you saw." She explained the data logic the way she explained homework to Emmy, simple, clear, like truth was obvious if you just looked. Adrian listened with focus. When she finished, he looked at her as if seeing his younger self reflected in overalls and worn sneakers. "What's your name?" "Harmony Hart." "You're certain about the timestamp?" "Yes, sir." "Thank you, Harmony, for seeing what others miss." She left quickly. Behind her, Adrian pulled out his phone, staring at the screen she'd identified. Colin answered on the first ring. "Adrian, it's 2 a.m. "We have a problem," Adrian said quietly. "And I think it's much bigger than either of us realized." What Colin didn't know was that the janitor he'd dismissed had just become the biggest threat to everything he'd spent years hiding. Because sometimes the most powerful stories begin when the person everyone underestimates sees the truth that powerful people desperately need to keep buried. Adrian requested full server logs going back 6 months. Colin complied with a smile that never touched his eyes, then spent the weekend systematically erasing evidence he'd taken years to bury. But he made one critical miscalculation. He assumed the shy girl cleaning floors was exactly what she appeared to be. Mrs. Davenport had worked night security at Aurelius Systems for 15 years. 68, silver-haired, she'd watched empires rise and fall, seen executives betray everything for ambition. "You look troubled, dear," Mrs. Davenport said one evening, pouring tea in the ground-floor security office. Harmony wrapped both hands around the warm cup. "I noticed something I probably shouldn't have. And now you're afraid of what noticing might cost." "I've lost everything for less." Mrs. Davenport leaned forward. "The world loves making women like us invisible. But invisible doesn't mean powerless. Sometimes truth needs someone brave enough to see it." Harmony thought of Emmy sleeping peacefully nearby. What if I'm wrong? What if you're right and staying silent costs someone everything? The file breach happened on Thursday. Major project data, proprietary AI algorithms worth millions appeared on a competitor's server. The kind of catastrophic leak that destroyed companies. By Friday morning, Colin had identified his scapegoat. She was on the restricted floor. Colin's voice rang clear in the emergency board meeting. She accessed systems multiple times. The access logs don't lie. Adrian sat at the table's head, his face unreadable. "Bring her in." They came for Harmony during her shift. Two security officers, not Mrs. Davenport, who'd been reassigned, escorted her to a conference room designed for judgment. Harmony's hands trembled in her lap, hidden where no one could see. Adrian entered. She searched his face for the man who'd listened at 2 a.m., found only professional distance. "Harmony." He sat across from her. "Did you access those project files?" Her voice emerged, small, fractured. "I would never. Please believe me." The evidence suggests otherwise. Something sparked in her chest, not anger, but the ember of a woman who'd survived this before. "I don't care what the evidence suggests, I'm telling you the truth." Her eyes met his. "I spent 2 years making myself invisible because the last time I spoke up, they destroyed me for it. But I didn't steal those files. And if you genuinely believe I did, then you don't understand anything about the patterns you claim to trust." Adrian's jaw tightened. Something flickered in his expression, doubt maybe. Before he could respond, the door burst open. Mrs. Davenport stood there breathless with Emmy clutching her hand. The child had been crying. "Please don't take her away. She's all I have." Emmy ran to Harmony, buried her face against her aunt's overalls. "I'm sorry I came to work, Mrs. Davenport said you needed me. Please don't leave me like Mommy did." Harmony wrapped Emmy in her arms, and in that moment, Adrian saw everything. Saw the way this shy girl held the child, like she was the only thing worth protecting. Saw how her hands shook, not with guilt, but with terror of losing someone who needed her. The memory crashed over him, holding his girlfriend Sarah's hand, as machines beeped their final warnings. She died because of falsified safety data from a supplier who'd altered logs to hide deadly failures. He'd built Aurelius systems to prevent exactly that, constructed walls around truth so high that lies couldn't scale them. And now he stood on the wrong side of those walls. "Everyone out," Adrian said quietly, "except Harmony and Emmy." Colin's voice cut sharp with panic. "Adrian, the evidence clearly shows. Out. Now." When the room emptied, Adrian sat back down. Emmy remained tucked against Harmony's side. I lost someone." Adrian began, his voice rough. "To data that lied. To people who cared more about protecting their reputations than telling the truth. I built this company so that could never happen again." "Then why are you doing this to me?" Harmony's voice cracked. "Why are you letting them turn me into the lie?" "Because I'm afraid. Afraid that if I trust the wrong person again, someone innocent pays the price." Emmy lifted her head. In her small hands, she clutched the printed log pages, evidence supposedly proving Harmony's guilt. The child stared at them with intensity, her finger tracing invisible patterns. "These numbers bend weird," Emmy said suddenly, her voice carrying absolute certainty. "Like when someone cheats in my puzzle game, and the jump doesn't work right." Adrian leaned forward. "What do you mean, Emmy?" She held up the page, pointing to sequences. "See, the jump isn't natural. Somebody pushed it. Made it wrong on purpose." The room went absolutely still. Harmony stared at the numbers, and suddenly she saw it. Not just the altered timestamp, but the pattern underneath. The same careful signature she'd identified weeks ago. The same deliberate manipulation designed to look random, but revealing an architecture of intentional deception. "It's not random," Harmony whispered. "It's the exact same pattern. From the dashboard I showed you. Someone's been systematically altering data for months, maybe longer." Adrian's eyes met hers across the table, and in that gaze passed an understanding that transcended words. She was innocent, and whoever had framed her was far more dangerous than either of them had imagined. The moment a CEO realizes the shy girl he almost destroyed is the only person who can save his company from the enemy hiding in plain sight, everything changes forever. Adrian called an emergency board meeting for Monday morning. Colin arrived perfectly composed. His narrative rehearsed the janitor who'd exploited her access, the security failure, the unfortunate necessity of criminal prosecution. What Colin didn't know was that Adrian had spent the weekend in server rooms with Harmony excavating truth from layers of lies. Emmy had fallen asleep on the office couch, her tablet displaying half-finished number puzzles. Around 3 a.m., Harmony looked up. "Why are you helping me?" Adrian kept his eyes on the screen. "Because someone I loved died, and I've spent every day since trying to build a world where truth matters more than protecting powerful people's reputations. I nearly failed her memory by not believing you." By Sunday evening, they had everything, not just proof of Harmony's innocence, but evidence of something far worse. The boardroom filled with people expecting resolution. Colin sat to Adrian's right, projecting concerned gravity. Harmony stood near the door, hands clasped, eyes down. Adrian began without preamble. "We're here because proprietary data was stolen. Evidence initially pointed to Ms. Hart. That evidence was manufactured." Colin's fingers tightened on his pen. "Adrian, I understand you want to believe in her, but, I'm not asking anyone to believe anything. I'm presenting verifiable proof." Adrian pulled up the first screen server access logs spanning 6 months. These show administrative-level security breaches, all during time windows when Ms. Hart was verifiably elsewhere. The CTO leaned forward. "That's impossible. Those actions would require executive admin credentials." "Precisely." "The timestamps were altered," Harmony said quietly. Everyone turned. "By exactly 0.042 seconds, consistent across every breach. It's a signature someone who understood enough to hide their tracks, but not enough to eliminate their pattern." Adrian advanced to the next screen. "This pattern appears in 23 separate incidents over 14 months. Failed AI models, budget discrepancies, all manually overridden using admin access." A board member spoke carefully. "Who possesses that level of system access?" Adrian's eyes found Colin. "CEO, CTO, CFO, and COO." Colin stood abruptly. "This is absurd. You're accepting the word of a janitor over forensic log files, over mathematical patterns that prove systematic data manipulation. She's manipulating you. This is exactly what she did at her previous job. I personally contacted her previous employer. The billing discrepancies she reported were completely accurate. They terminated her to avoid investigating their senior leadership. 4 months later, federal auditors discovered the fraud. 2 executives received prison sentences. The CTO examined his tablet. These security overrides were digitally signed using Colin's administrative credentials. "Those could be stolen," Colin said quickly. "You altered AI model data when it failed critical testing." Harmony stepped forward. "You blamed the offshore team and orchestrated their termination. You disabled safety warnings. You manually changed log entries so your failures appeared to be everyone else's mistakes. And when I noticed the timestamp discrepancy, you attempted to destroy me before I could recognize the pattern." Colin stared at this shy girl he'd dismissed. "You're nothing. A janitor who got lucky." "I believe her." Adrian's voice rang with finality. "And the forensic data supports every word." The CTO nodded gravely. "Colin, I'm immediately revoking your system access." A board member reached for her phone. "Legal, we need security in the executive boardroom. Now." Colin's hands flattened on the table. "I built this division from nothing. You sacrificed good people to conceal your mistakes, Adrian said quietly. You corrupted our integrity systems, and today the very system you abused exposed you. Security entered. Colin's eyes landed on Harmony with pure venom. This is your fault. Harmony met his gaze without flinching. My place is seeing what you hoped everyone would overlook. In the silence that followed, Adrian addressed the board. Ms. Hart will receive a formal apology. Her personnel record will be corrected. And effective immediately, she's promoted to junior data analyst with full retroactive compensation. Agreed unanimously. A board member nodded. Ms. Hart, this company owes you far more than an apology. Adrian caught her eye. In his expression, she recognized something that looked like pride. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for being brave enough to see truth when everyone else chose blindness. Outside, Harmony leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Davenport. Emmy wants to know if you're coming home soon. She says she dreamed you were flying. Harmony smiled through tears. Typed back, tell her I think I just did. Sometimes the most powerful justice looks like a shy girl who refused invisibility, standing in a room full of people who finally learned what it means to truly see. The days after the board meeting felt surreal. Wednesday morning, Harmony received her new badge, Junior Data Analyst, Analytics Division. Her workspace occupied the 32nd floor, the analytics floor she'd cleaned for 2 years, while understanding every dashboard better than those paid to analyze them. Now she sat among them. The engineers who'd walked past her without acknowledgement now nodded politely, uncertain how to reconcile the professional woman with the janitor they'd rendered invisible. Mrs. Davenport visited during lunch, eyes bright. Proud doesn't begin to describe it, she said, squeezing Harmony's hands. Your sister would be so proud too. Emmy arrived after school and stared wide-eyed at the office. You have a real desk with a computer and everything. I do. Harmony lifted Emmy onto her lap, pointing at the monitor. See these patterns? This is what I've been seeing in my mind all along. Now I get to explain them to people who'll listen. Like a secret language only you could read, Emmy said. And now you're teaching them how to see it too. But evenings carried different weight. Harmony returned to the apartment she shared with Emmy, 2 modest bedrooms, thrift store furniture walls covered with Emmy's artwork and photographs of her sister, and felt transformation's complexity. She was still the woman who'd lost her sister, still raising a child alone, still carrying wounds from being dismissed for telling inconvenient truths. The promotion didn't erase those experiences. It proved she'd survived them. 1 week after Colin's termination, Adrian requested Harmony's presence. She rode the elevator to the 40th floor and found him by the window where he'd once fired her as a test. You wanted to see me. Adrian turned, looking younger without his CEO armor. I owe you an apology beyond what the board expressed. You don't need to. I do. Please sit. They sat in the informal seating area. Adrian's hands folded in his lap. He started to speak. Stopped. Started again. When I tested you that day, I convinced myself it was about security. But truthfully, it was about my fear. About not trusting my judgment, because the last time I trusted someone, she died, and I blamed myself for not seeing the danger. Harmony's throat tightened. Adrian. Her name was Sarah. We met in graduate school. She was brilliant, saw impossible connections in data. She died in an automobile accident caused by a manufacturing defect the company knew about and concealed. They chose quarterly profits over human lives. I'm so sorry. I built Aurelia systems to be different, where truth couldn't be buried. He met her eyes. and then I nearly became exactly what I despised. Nearly destroyed you to protect myself from vulnerability. You didn't destroy me, Harmony said softly. You gave me an opportunity to be seen for who I am. I should have seen you sooner. Maybe we both needed time to be ready for this moment. Adrian's expression shifted, surprise recognition, cautious hope. Mrs. Davenport told me you're the bravest person she's ever met, that you've survived experiences that would shatter most people and still chose kindness. Harmony smiled, the expression carrying shadows. Kindness is just survival wearing better clothing. Then you wear it remarkably well. They sat in comfortable silence, two wounded souls learning that healing didn't require forgetting. It required finding someone who understood the weight you carried. There's something I'd like to show you tomorrow if you're available, Adrian said eventually. Show me what? The reason I truly do what I do. The part that isn't about avoiding past mistakes. He stood offering his hand. It's personal, but I think you'd understand better than most. Harmony accepted his hand, felt warmth beyond professional courtesy. Okay. Thank you, Harmony, for everything you've done, for everything you are. She left feeling lighter than she had in years, unaware that tomorrow would reveal why two broken people sometimes find each other exactly when they both need finding most. But what Adrian was about to share would change everything, revealing that the most inspirational connections happen when two people stop hiding their scars and start sharing their stories. Adrian took Harmony to the rooftop. Not the executive terrace with its catered events, but the actual roof accessed through a maintenance door most people didn't know existed. The city sprawled below them, lights beginning to glow as dusk painted the sky. I come here when walls feel too close, Adrian said, settling onto the ledge. When I need to remember the world is bigger than my fear. Harmony sat beside him. Remember what specifically? That control is an illusion. That the best we can do is face truth honestly. He withdrew a photograph worn soft from years of holding. A woman with dark hair and a smile suggesting she'd just told a joke. Sarah. She used to say data told stories if you listened properly. That every pattern was someone's truth trying to surface. He traced the photo's edge. When she died, I stopped listening to anything except numbers. Believed if I built systems perfect enough, I could control every variable, prevent every tragedy. But you can't, Harmony said gently. No, I can't. He looked at her. When you said you didn't want your niece to lose stability, I heard Sarah's voice. She'd said nearly identical words once when her mother was dying. What did you do? I held her hand and told her that strength isn't pretending you're not breaking. It's having courage to break in front of someone who won't let you shatter completely alone. Tears pricked Harmony's eyes. That's beautiful. She taught me that. He returned the photo to his pocket. Then I forgot it. Spent 10 years building walls instead of connections. Until you walked into my office and refused to beg for something you'd already earned, basic human dignity. Harmony's voice emerged small. I've spent 2 years invisible, trying not to be seen because being seen meant being vulnerable to people who'd already proven they'd hurt me. I understand that fear intimately. Emmy keeps me going, but some days I'm exhausted from being brave, from pretending loss doesn't still wake me at 3 a.m. My sister was my best friend. She was supposed to watch Emmy grow up. Her voice cracked. Instead, I'm doing it alone and terrified I'm not enough. You're more than enough. Adrian's voice carried absolute certainty. You raised a child who sees patterns in numbers and recognizes truth in chaos. You survived people who tried to make you small and refused to let them succeed. You stood in a boardroom full of executives and didn't back down even when your hands were shaking. I was terrified the entire time. Courage isn't the absence of shaking. It's shaking and speaking truth anyway. They sat in silence, watching the city breathe below them. You weren't supposed to break me, Adrian said finally. But you did, in the best possible way. Made me remember that being human means being vulnerable, and being vulnerable means having capacity to actually connect. Harmony looked at him. This man who'd tested her, believed her, defended her, saw past his CEO armor to the wounded person underneath. I think maybe we broke each other, she said softly. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's even good. Maybe it's exactly what we both needed. He didn't reach for her hand. Didn't need to. The connection lived in shared understanding, in the space where two people recognized each other's wounds and chose tenderness over judgment. The sun set, painting the sky in impossible colors. Thank you, Harmony whispered, for seeing me, for believing me when you had every reason not to. Thank you for being brave enough to be seen, for not giving up on truth even when the world kept punishing you for telling it. They sat together as night fell, two healing souls learning that sometimes the people meant to save you arrive in forms you never expected, in moments that break you open just enough to let light back in. This moment wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something neither had expected: connection, born from shared wounds, hope built on mutual understanding, and the quiet revelation that being seen, truly seen, was worth every risk. But their story wasn't finished yet, because the most powerful transformations happen when two people stop hiding and start healing together. 3 months later, Aurelia Systems prepared to launch their revolutionary AI integrity platform. The auditorium filled with investors, journalists, and industry leaders. Adrian stood backstage adjusting his tie with trembling hands. Nervous Harmony appeared beside him in sharp professional attire. Terrified, he smiled. I'm not the one giving the keynote address. You should be. This platform exists because of your insight. She'd spent 3 months teaching engineers to recognize the stories data told. The resulting platform could detect manipulation with unprecedented accuracy, all starting with a shy girl noticing a 0.042-second timestamp discrepancy. The lights dimmed. Adrian walked on stage to sustained applause. Tonight's success came from someone we overlooked for 2 years, while she cleaned our floors and understood our systems better than those designing them. He gestured toward the wings. Harmony Hart, would you please join me? Harmony froze. This wasn't the plan. But Adrian's eyes found hers, asking, trusting, believing. She walked out to thunderous applause. Adrian handed her the microphone. She explained pattern recognition without jargon, spoke about seeing truth in systems designed to obscure it, described what it meant to be systematically underestimated, and choosing to prove them wrong through quiet excellence. When she finished, Adrian reclaimed the microphone. Harmony Hart, Junior Data Analyst, Lead Integrity Consultant, and the person who saved this company from destroying itself. The standing ovation lasted 4 minutes. Afterward, Adrian found Harmony staring at the display wall. You didn't warn me you were going to do that. Would you have agreed if I had? Absolutely not. She turned to face him. Adrian, I know this is complicated. There are power dynamics. I don't want professional. The words escaped before she could reconsider. Adrian went still. What do you want? Dinner, not a business meeting. Just dinner with someone who sees me. Are you asking me on a date, Ms. Hart? I believe I am, Mr. Cole. He smiled. Then I accept. On one condition: you let me tell Emmy first. She's been giving me pointed looks about being extra nice to Aunt Harmony for weeks. Harmony laughed. She's remarkably perceptive. Before Harmony could respond, Emmy burst through the doors, Mrs. Davenport trailing behind. The child launched herself at Harmony. "You were on the giant screen. You were amazing." Adrian knelt to Emmy's level. "Your aunt was incredible tonight." Emmy studied him with childlike gravity. "Are you going to take her to dinner, like in movies when people are happy together?" "Yes," Adrian said simply. "If that's acceptable to you." Emmy considered this with theatrical seriousness, then nodded. "Okay, but you have to be really, really nice. She's the best person in the whole world." "I know." Adrian's eyes met Harmony's. "Trust me, I absolutely know." Mrs. Davenport smiled knowingly, watching with the satisfaction of someone who'd believed in both of them all along. Sometimes the most inspirational stories don't end with just justice, they end with two people who were never supposed to meet finding each other exactly when they both desperately needed to be found.